Hi, I'm Tom Smothers.
And I'm Dick Smothers, and welcome to the original Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour.
These shows were taped at Television City in Hollywood during the late 60s. This comedy hour you're about to see was scheduled to air April 13th, 1969. But if you don't remember seeing it before, it may be because CBS never, ever aired this show.
That's right. And our guests on the show that was never aired were Laugh-In's Dan Rowan, comedian David Steinberg, and singer Nancy Wilson. This comedy hour actually is one of my most memorable shows.
And that's because this is the comedy hour that supposedly got us fired.
That's right. This was the second time David Steinberg performed a satirical religious sermon on the show. The first time David performed one of his sermons on the show, CBS got hundreds of negative letters, actually.
So they were wary of having him back on the show again, and of course we had him on the show and asked him to do a second sermon.
And it went over so well with the network the first time.
So the second sermon they used as an excuse to fire the Smothers Brothers.
One of our other guests was Dan Rowan from the NBC series Laugh-In, and he also knew about censorship firsthand.
Our musical guest was the great jazz singer Nancy Wilson. I had the honor of singing a duet with her, which was outstanding, I might say myself.
So let's have a first look at the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour that was never aired on CBS.
Never.
Ladies and gentlemen, we think we have a very fine show for you tonight. In fact, we have a special thing that we, sort of a part of the show that we researched for weeks and weeks, and it should be a special interest for every American citizen that's viewing the show tonight. Don't you think so, Tom?
How's the tie look?
Didn't you hear a word I said? I said we have a special
I heard
part
you,
of the show.
But you didn't say anything important.
I said there's a special thing now. If you're going to read the show, you got the lines out there, read them. What do you do all week, anyway? I'm down here working on the show. You're up there making big phone calls. Think people come and tune in. Oh, let's see Smothers Brothers. Tommy makes great phone calls. You're supposed to learn the show. That's what I'm getting sick and tired of this.
Continue. I'll read the lines.
Continue. I went to my part and you didn't even come in. Were you dressing out here on the show?
You really think you really think that you're really something, don't you?
I don't know how I've ever stood you. 10 years. This is our 10-year anniversary this month in show business, and I just can't take it anymore.
If you don't like it, you can split.
Listen, I would like to split. There's so many times that I want to split, but there's nobody dumb enough, like me, dumb enough to work with you.
Yes, there is. There's a guy in Laugh-In, he has a mustache, just as dumb as you, and he'd come over here.
Oh, you think he'd work with you?
You're darn right. It'd be a pleasure, too.
Okay. Big shot, I quit.
You can't quit.
Why?
You're fired.
Yeah. You're fired.
You can't fire me.
Why?
I quit.
Oh, yeah, you can't quit, because I quit first. Goodbye, good luck, and see ya.
Oh, yeah? A lot of times, my brother can't help himself because he's a Scorpio, one of the rotten signs of the zodiac. I know. We just... If he left, tell him to keep going. We just continue with the show. Da 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 da.
Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour with guest stars David Steinberg, Teddy Neely, special guest star Nancy Wilson. Jimmy Joy singers, the Ron Poindexter dancers, and Nelson Riddle and his orchestra. From Television City in Hollywood, ladies and gentlemen, meet the Smothers Brothers.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dan Rowan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Where's the other one?
The other one?
Yeah,
I know. Well, we had my brother and I had an argument, and it's difficult to get along with. You know how Scorpios are.
No, how are they?
Oh, you're kidding me. Scorpios have got to be their worst sign in the zodiac, man. They are belligerent, antagonistic, uncompromising, evil, vicious, and the best place for them is in the garbage can where they can understand.
Tommy, I'm a Scorpio.
Not all Scorpios are that way.
No, I'm just putting you on. Actually, I'm a moon child, July 2nd.
Well,
July, yeah, that's right.
I like Moon Children, and I want to thank you for being on the show because it's really great. I mean this sincerely as a person with soul, that I want to say it's really nice to work with someone that's groovy for a change.
Well, thank you very much.
Got a mustache. You know, my brother said, you won't believe this. People won't believe this. My brother said I'd never find anybody that would ever work with me because he doesn't like me at all. He said I'd never find anybody that had a mustache. And then if I did find someone with a mustache, they'd probably be pretty dumb. So I was pretty lucky to get you.
Thank you, I guess. Yeah. You guys have this kind of beef very often? Is it
no, well,
sometime thing, or is it
no,
all the time?
Basically, Dan, we've been working a long time together, and we've gotten a lot of. We have a lot of fights and stuff. You know, it's like you've had a partner for a long.
17 years. What's his name? And I've been together. Yeah.
Yeah. You probably know what I'm talking about. Having these arguments and fights a lot. You probably have the same problem, right? Being together.
No, not one in 17 years.
No, I don't mean just on the show. I mean like during rehearsals and stuff during the week when he doesn't come in. He's always messing around doing other things like that.
He's always late. Yeah.
Yeah, and you probably have an argument then.
No. Never have.
Well, see, I don't mean that specific. That specifically.
Oh, you mean on the whole? You mean the interpersonal conflict that's bound to happen between two people?
That's right. What about?
No. Not a one.
Well, you know, I can really tell that because of the way you guys get. You can tell that you don't have any problem. The show is great, by the way. That Laugh-In is just fantastic show.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. Yeah.
You know, what I like about your show primarily more than anything probably is the thing that really tickles me a lot.
What's that?
Is that we can't get on our show because it's too sophisticated for CBS.
Really?
But it's a very funny thing you do. The flying fickle finger of fate. I think that's just.
Well, now wait, hold it. Now that's a very serious thing, Tommy. That fickle finger of fate we take very seriously. We have only awarded that to people who really deserve it, or organizations really deserving of that award. Someone who's really done a general disservice to the country, they get it. That's a serious moment on our show.
Well, yeah. Well, hey, I don't want to, kind of like come on with you or anything, but I was wondering, you don't happen to have the flying fickle finger of fate here with you, do you?
Surely you jest. You must be spoofing me. You honestly asking me if I wouldn't step out of the house without one, young man? Yes. Thank you, Alfred.
Is that?
That's the little golden goodie right there. I wouldn't move without it.
I have someone that's very deserving I'd like to do it to.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Senator Pastore!
Wait a minute. What are you doing with our award? You just don't give this to anybody. Why do you want to give it to Senator Pastore?
I got some information.
Yeah, like what?
What Senator Pastore says. He's handling those TV committees. He says everything is filth and gore on television. I got a phrase from him.
A specific instance.
Wait till you hear this. Senator Pastore says he was watching. He says he was watching. It was a Merv Griffin show when he saw a French actress with a low-cut gown. And he said, "This is the truth." He said that she shouldn't be allowed on television.
Well, now come on. He may have been frightened as a young boy by a girl in a low-cut gown. That's his name. You can't give it to him for a thing like that. I mean, some real reason.
What are you gonna do? You just gonna hang around, or are we gonna do it?
Tommy, he may be a worthy nominee. Now, then, I know you for a very serious fellow. You just don't kid around all the time. In real life, I know you're concerned with a lot of vital issues. And if you say he's worthy, he may be worthy, and I'll find out. Because I have friends in Washington. As a matter of fact, I have a very good friend in Washington, and I happen to know his private phone number. May I have the phone, please, and you take the award. Thank you very much. And I'll get him on the phone. And this is
You mean the top guy?
The top man. He was on our show, you know. Before the election, yeah. Hello, yes, this is Dan Rowan. I wonder... Well, hello, sir. Yes. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Well, I'm terribly sorry to have interrupted you right in the middle of Bonanza, but... well, thank you. The reason I'm calling, sir, I wanted to ask you about Senator Pastore and whether or not... Pastore. Pastore. Rhode Island, I believe, sir. Yes. Well, I'd appreciate it if you'd look it up. He says he'll look. Yeah, well, you see, I'm standing here with Tommy Smothers and, hello? Hello.
I haven't had a really good relationship with the top guys in government.
I'll get him back on the... We were obviously disconnected. You go ahead and do whatever it is you do here, and I'll get him back.
You want to hear a joke?
Just straight out joke?
It's a heavy joke, man. I really like you, and once you hear this joke, you'll never ever want to work again with what's-his-name. We can let my brother and what's-his-name go and do things with each other.
You just do jokes with no help at all.
Listen to this. You'll fall over laughing. It's out of context, but it doesn't make any difference because it's delivery and timing. You want to work with a heavyweight? Here goes. This is a heavy line.
Look, there's a puma in the crevice!
Yeah, that's swell, Tommy. I'll tell you what we've found. If you have a line like that isn't really a blockbuster, you have a little bucket of water, I hit you with the water.
No, it's not that important.
A trap door, I guarantee you. You go through that the line trap door, zing, you got a big laugh.
Yeah,
the
but
wall
that's not
will fall, and you go through I'll tell you what we'll do. First time ever, have never used a pie on our show. This is the show to use a pie. May I have a pie, please? Thank you very much. Give me just a little slinging room here. Now, you do that line again, and then I hit you with a pie, and I guarantee these people, there will not be a dry eye in the house. They are going to fall down, screaming, hollering. Just go right ahead.
Why don't you
just look right in that little old red eye there and zing it in there.
Yeah, well,
just the same punch and everything. Okay.
Maybe they didn't get it.
Just right in there, boy. You just look right in there, and you do that same line. Okay. Go ahead. No, don't look at me. You look right in there, and the same line, boy. You want to scream, you're going to get. Go ahead. Go on.
There's a puma in the crevice!
Boy, are you something.
You duck.
You are really something. Dan is as dumb as my brother. He fell for the old throwing the pipe, ducking, and the missing gag. I think you fall for the old looking up in the air gag, too. Boy, you're a dumb bilbus. Hey, give me that other pie here. You want to try again, Dumbo? I'll do that line again, huh? You want to try and give another shot at here? Try to get old Tommy Smothers with the old pie number, huh? Was the old throwing the...
You have your license with you?
I wasn't in...
Come with me.
Let me get your badge. I wasn't in...
I'll try and get him. Right after this, we'll be back with the phone call. See you in a minute. Yes. Yes, it is the United States Senate, isn't it? Well, I'm asking about Senator Pastore. P-A-S-T... There's a lot of unrest on college campuses these days, what with strikes and so on, but despite all that, there's still some students who honestly want to learn. Now, these students are inspired by great professors, and here to portray one of those professors is David Steinberg.
Who is it?
It's Mr. Smothers.
Oh, Mr. Smothers! In time for your oral examination in philosophy, eh, lad?
Yes, sir.
Oh, terrific.
May I come in?
Yeah, come on in.
The door's locked, sir.
Yes, I know.
Maybe you'd prefer for me to come back later.
No.
Would you unlock the door?
Good! Why didn't you say so? is it, eh, lad?
Yes, sir.
12 years of scrimping and starving and saving, all for 1 second where an eye can make you or break you. Relax. How are you?
Oh, fine, thank you, sir. What was that?
What?
What was that sound? That...
Oh, this!
Oh, it was your armpit.
My horn! You made a mistake. Every time you make a mistake, I honk you. It's an old tradition I established here this morning. I find it relaxes the students so much more than the conventional way. Now, from a 3-year-old child, when you ask him, how are you, I would expect him to say, fine, dada. From a PhD with your background, we expect a loftier answer. Now, how are you? Relax.
I think, therefore I am.
Descartes?
Yes, sir.
The French philosophers. Very good, very good. Unfortunately, I sway towards the German philosophers. Well, Mr. Smothers, what's new?
Oh,
What's new? Trust me.
the instant?
Which one?
The next one?
How long?
That long.
Too long. Are you Jewish?
No, I'm not.
Push on anyway. Maybe you'd do better at arithmetic, do you think?
Very confident in my
Oh,
math.
arithmetic is your subject, is it?
Yes.
How much are 5 and 3?
5 and 2, this is tricky. 5 and 2.
Come on, you.
5 and 3. 8.
8! Good! You got one right! How fast are they traveling? Who? Whom? Maybe you'd do better at philosophers, do you think?
That's what I'm here for, to take a...
Oh, the philosophers. Schopenhauer,
Yes, sir. Schopenhauer.
Nietzsche. Socrates. Buber.
Uber.
Wittgenstein. Ludwig von Wittgenstein. The man after whom I've modeled my whole philosophy of life.
Sorry, Professor, I don't recognize... I can't...
Don't worry, it wasn't a question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Didn't know.
Next question. When did he live? I don't even know who... Take a guess, you're a sinking ship. When did he live? Well, how would I know it? Take a guess.
1823.
Oh, so close. 20th century. What was the name of Wittgenstein's nationality?
German.
At the time of his death. Don't get caught. This is a tricky one.
Irish.
So close, it was German. What was the name of Wittgenstein's book with the red cover?
The Red Book.
Yes, the... How did you know that? All right, Smothers, 2 can play this game. What was the name of Wittgenstein's book with the blue cover?
The Blue Book.
The Blue Book! You sure you're not Jewish? What was the name of Wittgenstein's book with the brown cover?
The Brown Book.
No, Tautagus Logicus Philosophicus, chicken lips. You have flunked, kaput, finished. You are wiped out, as we surfers say. You are not a PhD, therefore you do not exist. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, a great singer, Miss Nancy Wilson. Ah, love is so sweet in the springtime, when blossoms are fragrant in May. My heart ever young will remember the thrill it knew that day in May. Sweetheart, 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 will you love me ever? Will you remember this day? La la la. When we were happy in May, my dearest one. Sweetheart, 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 though our paths may sever, tonight's last faint ember, will you remember? Springtime, love time, May. Let me look at you. Oh, Celeste. I never expected to meet anyone like you here at the May Festival. You're the most beautiful girl I've ever met. Won't you be my sweetheart?
But Thomas, aren't you afraid of what people will say?
Oh, dash. Let them say what they want. I don't care. I don't care if you are older than I am. Love knows no age barrier.
Oh, Thomas, how true. And I don't care if I am the daughter of the wealthiest man in town, and you are but the lowly son of the town drunk. Let them talk. Love cannot be bought.
Oh, you're so beautiful. Celeste, it makes no difference to me that you are a divorcee and have 3 children, one of them my elder. I will try. I know I can be a father to him.
Oh, Thomas, my love, it matters not to me that you only have a 3rd-grade education.
Oh, Celeste, Celeste. Oh, but Celeste, aren't we forgetting about one thing that people are sure to talk about? And something that they will try to destroy our relationship, and which will cause immeasurable damage to our children.
Thomas, what are you talking about?
The fact that I'm white and you're black.
I'm what?
Black, Negro, Afro-American. Celeste, it won't bother me that my ancestors came to your shores of Africa and took away your people and put them into slavery, having them work, picking cotton in the cotton fields in the boiling sun. It doesn't bother me because I love you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the fact that our people persecuted you and made your people second-class citizens just simply because of ignorance and bigotry. Why should this bother me? Because we love each other. It makes no difference that I'm white and you're black.
Sweetheart, 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 though our paths may sever.
Yeah, boy.
Back in October 27th, I think, last year, we had a young man, David Steinberg, on the show who did a sermonette along with the New Day Singers, a Jesuit seminary group. And we had a great deal of problems from that telecast, and it was all intended in fun. But we have Mr. Steinberg back with us again. We think he's one of the truly fine comedians and writers in the business. And he's going to do now another sermonette. Now, we don't want to offend anybody out there, but if you get offended, that's the way the cookie crumbles. No. Ladies and gentlemen, very talented man with his sermon, Mr. David Steinberg.
Will the congregation please be seated for this evening's sermon? Tonight's sermon deals with the exciting personalities of Solomon, Lot, and Jonah, all of whom had a wonderful rapport with God, whom I'm sure you'll all remember from last week's sermon. When Solomon was appointed king, God appeared to him in a dream and said, "Solomon, now that you're king, you can have anything that your heart desires." Solomon said, "Oh, God, grant me wisdom that I might be the wisest king of all." And God gave Solomon his anthropomorphic zap. Solomon became all wise and knowing, and at that moment he knew he should have asked for money. Jonah, God said to Jonah, "Go unto the king of Nineveh and tell him that he has sinned." Jonah said, "I have a feeling he knows." And Jonah ran away from the face of God. Instead of going to Nineveh, he went to Tarshish. Nineveh was that way, towards Wilshire Boulevard. And he went to Tarshish, which was that way. He got into a ship that was commandeered by 23 Gentiles. A bad move on Jonah's part. And the Gentiles, as their wont from time to time, threw the Jew overboard. Now here there are two concepts that we must deal with. There is the New Testament concept and the Old Testament concept. The Old Testament scholars say that Jonah was in fact swallowed by a whale. The Gentiles, the New Testament scholars, they say, hold it, Jews. No, Jonah, they literally grabbed the Jews by the Old Testament. They say Jonah could not have been swallowed by a whale, the New Testament scholars say, because whales have tiny gullets and cannot swallow whole prophets. Therefore, they offer their own theory that Jonah was in fact swallowed by a gigantic guppy. And to this day, the New Testament doesn't sell. In closing, I'd like to remind you to, yes, let's get the Christ back into Christmas and the Chuh back into Hanukkah.
Welcome to the Glenn Campbell Show. Is it a boy or is it a girl? Takes all kinds to make the world go round. The rules and regulations, the rules and regulations, the rules and regulations. You know, everywhere we go, our lives are governed by rules and regulations. I mean, without them, many people feel that our society and our country would fall into chaos and anarchy because we need rules and regulations. Sorry. You know, for instance, union rules here in the studio and in television. Only union members are allowed to move objects from the stage one way or another like that. Personally, I feel that sometimes rules and regulations go a little too far. I think that sometimes individual freedom, just because of that reason, individual...
No smoking on stage when there's an audience present. You know that.
You know, there's a line. I think that sometimes there's a line. If I want to smoke, I think I should be able to smoke. I don't think smoking is particularly a groovy thing to do, but I happen to smoke. I think that sometimes there's places that...
Tom, you have to abide by the rules and regulations.
Well, sometimes the rules
I think you've gone a little too far.
Just in a restaurant down the street, and the owner threw us out because we had long hair.
That's right, and according to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Officer Judy, that's illegal.
Sorry, that only applies to Negroes.
Do you have a book on the Dead Sea Scrolls?
Shh.
Eh?
Shh.
Eh? I can't read.
No kidding, Tom. Rules or no rules, I wouldn't take that from a censor. No.
Are you kidding? Of course I wouldn't. I said I can't. He's a kind of weird guy, walks around kind of half stoned all the time. I said, don't be ridiculous. I said, don't be ridiculous. You can't censor an entire show.
No.
And they did.
Harold, I think you know what a napkin's for. Oh, Harold, use the small fork for the salad and wipe your mouth. Harold, always pass things to the left. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. Harold, I wish you would stop gobbling your food. Oh, you're going to have to learn to eat more slowly. It's not good for you.
Friends, we are here to embark on a new experience. A society that exists without rules and regulations whatsoever.
But wait a minute. There should be some rules and regulations.
Sorry, those are the rules.
Whether they're right or whether they're wrong, it takes all kinds to make the world go round. The rules and regulations, 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 the rules and regulations.
was really a pleasure for me to do the show this week. I had no hassles, all during in between things with my brother, because that's the kind of guy he is. Maybe you'll be back, maybe you won't. I'd like to thank our guest for this week. By the way, Dan Rowan.
Yeah. Hold it down now. Hold it. Hold. That's enough. More cops, please. Hold them back.
Hey, what
Listen,
about...
I have been calling for an hour, and I can't seem to find anybody in Washington who really knows the real Senator Pastore. But from what I have heard, he certainly sounds as if he may be an eligible nominee for our little golden pinky. And so, Senator Pastore, whoever you are, wherever you are, keep up the good work, and if no one claims this little beauty within the next 30 days, it's all yours.
I'd like to thank our guests, Mr. Dan Rowan, David Steinberg, Teddy Neely, and the lovely Nancy Wilson. Let's give them a hand. And before we say goodnight, thank you, laugh and clap. I'd like to just control yourselves because, ladies and gentlemen, I have something a little bit serious to say. You know, we live in a time that has its own troubles, but history has proven that difficult times breed great men, and our time has its own great men. So tonight, in a moment of seriousness, we'd like to take this moment to remember a man who had a dream, Dr. Martin Luther King. Let us all hope that his dream will someday come true. Good night.
Also appearing on tonight's show was Bob Einstein. This is Roger Carroll.
Well, that was the show, the controversial show that was never shown on television. Tom, you got a little background on what you told David Steinberg to do on the show, or how it came up?
I don't recall. Now, I was told that I was contrary.
Well, but we knew he had a big reaction from the first sermonette on the show. Yeah. And when people write letters to the networks, generally they're negative. And he had a lot of negative letters. So, well, I'll tell it, Tommy doesn't recall. And CBS said, we don't mind David Steinberg doing the show, but no more sermonettes. You got that? Tommy said, yes, sir. And he hung up the phone, called up, get me David Steinberg. Hi, Dave. We'd like to have you on the show. Oh, you would? Can you do another sermonette? Fine. They loved it.
They loved it.
Tommy and I were just standing backstage, and he said, do you have another one of those sermonettes you could do? It was that casual. And I said, yeah. I said, but do you want me to do one? I already did this. Yeah, go ahead. Let's do it. It's great. I want to do it. It's terrific. And I did, I think it was Jonah. Because the issue became, what I did with my hands became a very big issue. I said, the New Testament scholars literally grabbed the Jews by the Old Testament. And then the issue became, was I making some reference to testicles? And I said, of course. That's what makes it funny. And they said, well, that's no good.
When Solomon was appointed king, God appeared to him in a dream and said, Solomon, now that you're king, you can have anything that your heart desires. Solomon said, oh, God, grant me wisdom that I might be the wisest king of all. And God gave Solomon his anthropomorphic zap. Solomon became all wise and knowing, and at that moment he knew he should have asked for money.
I didn't find out that this second show didn't air at all. I woke up one morning and to read the New York Times, and on the front page of the New York Times, I saw the name Steinberg. My wife claims that I could find my name through a 30-page, I mean, if it's there in the newspaper, I could open the page to it. But here it was right in front, and I didn't think it was my name. I thought, at that time, it was very unusual to be performing with a name like Steinberg. You were someone's accountant if you had a name like Steinberg, not a performer. And I just wanted to see who it was. Was it a relative of mine? What Steinberg was on the front page of the New York Times? And then it was, you know, something like Steinberg throws the Smothers Brothers off the air and controversial sermon. I mean, it was like the biggest thing. I mean, just surprised me.
I think CBS said anything we tell Tom to do, he'll do the opposite. So they probably
set me up.
Set you up.
Set me up. I fell for it.
Now the funny thing about this is we did 71 shows. This is the first and only show I didn't do. You know, at the top of the show, I got an argument. I left. Well, I was heavily in my racing time. I was racing professionally.
What was the race?
There was a big race. It was Sebring, Florida, the 12-hour international endurance race. It was manufacturers championship. It was a very big thing, and I was racing a prototype Porsche 906 long-nose car. And I asked, you know, way prior if I could get away from the show for this because it's a big race for me. Knowing everybody say, "Oh, Dick, no, you can't race. You were so valuable. What if you got hurt?"
CBS said, "Go ahead and race."
Go ahead and do it. And I said to my wife, I said, "Honey, do you mind if I go?" She said, "No, it's fine." I said, "Tom, no, go ahead and do it." So that sort of hurt my feelings, and then nobody asked me to insure myself either. And so they got the idea of Dan coming in.
So Dan became my straight man.
And we got fired. As soon as I'm gone, you get fired.
Well, I talked to you, and I said we're having problems on this show.
I don't even remember how you found out.
I remember now. I was up in San Francisco because the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour had just been picked up for the 4th season. I was in San Francisco doing a survey to find a place to produce the Comedy Hour from San Francisco.
That's right.
For the 1970
we're thinking about moving the show up to San Francisco.
The whole show up to San Francisco. We feel it would be easier to work, more productive. And I was looking at the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, and I got a call. I was talking to Mayor Alioto, who was going to bring the show up. We're going to be subsidized. It was going to be a San Francisco show.
Sort of the Jackie Gleason West.
Yes.
Remember, he was from Miami Beach.
And so I got a call, I think, in the mayor's office, from my attorney saying, "Don't get upset, but you've been fired. But don't say anything. Maybe it'll go away." So I didn't say anything for a day. And I believe it was on a Friday because they said, "Let it go through the weekend." So what they did was fire us on a Friday, so I think it was difficult to get press. I believe it was a Friday.
Yeah.
So that's how I found out. And a lot of people called it a cancellation. Your show was canceled. But we, both Dick and I, feel strongly about saying that it was a firing. Both ways you're off the air.
Both ways you're off the air. No one in the history of television, no show has ever been fired like that. And the way we talk about firing, shows don't last forever, let's face it. Cancellation is the normal process of taking a show off the air. You don't renew a contract. And firing was, we were in the midst of a contract, and they cut us off.
We heard about it. I heard about it from Tommy. But his attitude was at the time, "Don't worry. I mean, this is just temporary." Because we felt it was impossible for them to cancel us because we were so hot. That's very stupid thinking, by the way, in case anyone wants to know. Anybody can be canceled, anybody can be replaced in 10 minutes.
The network picked up the show, renewed it, formally notified us, "You're coming back in the fall," and then they canceled it. And in the legal dispute over their right to cancel it, the Smothers Brothers prevailed. That they had not violated the terms of their contract, they had not done anything wrong, so that they were owed for a season of shows. Of course, the network chose to pay that contract off rather than actually buy the shows and put us on the air. God forbid they should put us on the air after an Emmy-winning season. But there was, I think the cancellation was already in the air when we got our Emmy. We went up there and received an Emmy, knowing that the statue was the last souvenir we would have of that particular show, that we were not going to be back in the fall.
It became clear at that point that things just started getting uptight and tense, and more people started coming to watch rehearsals, and more material was looked at and changed, and it was like a real push or shove kind of issue. Like, wait a minute, you know, how do you function in this context now? You can't do what you're doing.
And it would get pretty interesting in the dressing room, I'll tell you, because Tom and Dick didn't take this lying down. And you'd have this exchange between Tom and Dick and Ken Fritz, my partner, and myself in the dressing room, in which Tommy would finally say, really at the top of his lungs, "You tell CBS to take this show and shove it," you know?
I think because he challenged CBS and the confrontation was straight on, full on challenge, he didn't go quietly into that good night. In fact, when he knew they were going to drop him, he just kind of turned the knife. And we watched and we thought, is this wise? I think it was the wise thing to do. He did not go quietly.
I feel that the Nixon presidency certainly contributed to the demise of the Smothers Brothers show, because we were very critical of the government in general. I mean, even when Johnson was there, we're critical of the Vietnam War and critical of all the things that really American youth were critical of at that time. And the election of Nixon, I think, had a lot to do with it. We were told at the time, and I don't know the validity of this, but that Mr. Stanton, who was at the network at that time, was very strong Nixon supporter, and was constantly embarrassed by the fact that on his network there was a show that was satirizing the presidency and the vice presidency and other aspects of the government.
Talking about this firing of the Smothers Brothers show, a lot of people out there, a number of people, said that was right and good. You deserved to get fired. Well, anyway, it was not good for our career to be fired. It sort of cut it off. So we had to sue CBS. And a long story short, we sued them. It took about 3 years to go to court. And the Smothers Brothers prevailed. CBS we sued them for breach of contract, copyright infringement, stuff like that. And we won. We maybe lost the war, but we won that battle.
And it was important for the Comedy Hour to win and go to court, because it was an emotional thing. The war was the reason, basically, the show was, we were fired. Basically, it was the Vietnam War, our continuation in it, and people now, in hindsight, say, why were you fired for saying bad words? It was never bad words. It was some thoughts that were very, very passionate and presented very strongly, even though the show that you just saw had nothing about.
Yeah, I think it's pretty apparent.
Nothing about the war or Vietnam, but the attitude was strong. The show was gone, and now we get to see him again. Another little trip back into space.
Yeah. Well, I hope this Comedy Hour brought back some pleasant memories for you all. I know you had a lot of pleasant memories there. Memory lane. And for those of you who weren't around back then, we hope maybe we showed you a little bit about what the world and TV were like in 1969.